Welcome to abombtozzzax. With me, Colin Holt. And my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. Here they come!
Hello, welcome, dear listeners, to the highlight of my week. It's abombtozzzax, my favourite Marvel character, where me and my friends are talking through every single Marvel character there is, more or less. We're still very much in the A's. We're going all the way from A to Z, but we've been jumping around because Daredevil came out, so we did Daredevil, things like that. Every week we're chatting about maybe the more popularist things. Popularist? I don't think that's the word, is it? Popular things. I'm obsessed with world events, as you can tell. We're not talking about the sort of Victor Orbans of the Marvel universe. We're talking about things like Daredevil, Spider-Man, and then the other week, me and my friend Nick just go back to the list and see who's next, because sometimes it's absolute randos like Iraqi, who you've never heard of. This week it's someone you've all heard of, I'm sure. Who are we talking about this week, Nick?
This week we are talking about, well, I was going to say Ant-Man, but actually Ant-Men.
Ant-Mans.
Ant-Mans.
Not Ant-Mans. At me at Mans. By the way, please do, very important, I say this every time, I always forget, please like, rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. It would really help us. The podcast is starting to grow. We're having so much fun. We're getting more and more listeners. What we'd really love is more questions. If you want to Gmail Nick, what is it?
It's abombtozzzax with 3 Zs at gmail.com.
Yeah, 3 Zs and 1 X. It's probably the worst name we could have picked for Gmail. Yeah, please do send us your thoughts and characters you want us to look at. If you have any questions. One of the big things that's going to come out of this, I'm sure, is that Ant-Man 1, Hank Pym, was an absolute creep. I really like him, not because he's a creep. Nick really hates him. Let battle commence. So here we go. Let's start with Ant-Man himself, Mr. Hank Pym. And also, by the way, if you do want to support us, go to patreon.com/abombtozzzax, where, look at that, I'm getting a bit overexcited there, where we're putting on extra stuff. So this week, for example, we're talking about the very first appearance of Hank Pym, which is not his first appearance as Ant-Man. It's in a little story called The Man in the Ant Hill, a little story about a little man. So let's start with Hank Pym. We're going to do Hank Pym. We're going to do Scott Lang. We're going to do a little bit of Eric O'Grady. Ugh, I do not like that man. I'll tell you for a start. Nick, what have you got for old Hanky Wanky?
Right, look, if you thought in the Daredevil episode that Jamie didn't like Foggy, that's got nothing on my feelings towards Mr. Hank Pym.
Whoa.
I think I can go far. I'm going to go as far as to say I hated him.
Did you hate him before we did this deep dive?
I hadn't really read much Hank Pym Ant-Man at all, because I haven't read much of the classic Avengers. I've read from like new Avengers on, so I didn't really know Hank Pym that much. But then going in and reading these, pretty much from the first few pages of that first issue, I thought it was a bell end.
Absolute bell end. I mean, I can't deny that. I cannot deny that. But as a character, well, I guess we're going to get into if you haven't listened before, every week we do a list of the top to bottom characters. Number 1 is currently Daredevil. I don't think Hank's going to pip him, but who knows? Maybe he'll pim him. But then we get into the argument, is a character, even if he's awful, but unintentionally awful, does that make him good as a character or not? Let's discuss. Let's not answer that just yet. Nick, do you want to give us some facts about the Pymster?
I haven't got the Pym facts. I thought you had the
Pym. Oh, sorry. I've got the Pym short history, but you did already.
I've got the facts. The facts. Yes.
Thank you.
So
Pym facts. Here we go.
So he's created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Jack Kirby. So
Larry Lieber, Stan Lee's brother.
Stan Lee's brother.
Surname is actually Lieber.
Yeah. His first appearance was in Strange Tales 75 in 1960. His height, 6 foot / variable. Sometimes much smaller, sometimes much bigger. Depending.
Sometimes a bit taller and then stick that way, which is my favorite era.
Sometimes only able to be 12 feet tall.
Yes.
He weighs 83 kilograms / also variable. His full name, we got a middle name klaxon here, Dr. Henry Johnathan Pym.
Daniel, could we have the middle name jingle, please? Which I don't think you've invented yet. There it was, the middle name jingle.
Yeah.
Dr. Henry Johnathan Hank Pym.
And his code names are Ant-Man, Giant Man, Goliath, the Wasp, Yellowjacket, Earth's Scientist Supreme, and Ultron at one point.
Yes, one you forgot there, which is the Hank I first. I don't know if you forgot it, but you missed it. One of the first Hank I met as a UK reader. Obviously, you sort of get random comics, don't you? And we didn't really just have we're going to read all of those or all of those. I, for some reason, got very into the West Coast Avengers, but only like 2 issues, one of which, of course, featured Master Pandemonium. And at that point, he took the code name, and this is apparently his official code name, Dr. Pym, the Scientific Adventurer. Nice. That was his greatest code name.
I mean, that does fit with his general level of arrogance, I think.
Arrogance and massive insecurity.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So is that all the facts about Pym?
Oh, he's had some nicknames that they've tried to get to stick over the year. He's had Boss Man, Bumblebee, Man Mountain, and the one that Captain America uses loads in one of the issues we read, High Pockets.
Weird. Why say that? Why call anyone High Pockets? Is that because their pockets are high because they're tall?
Yeah, I think that's during his Giant Man phase. So Captain America calls him High Pockets, which is such an unwieldy nickname for someone. It's so much longer than his actual name.
Yeah. Why? Cap doesn't strike me as a nickname guy.
No, it does feel weird. It feels oddly jarring that he suddenly decided to
officially give him his full name, Henry Johnathan Pym.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I've got a little point to make that I discovered in my research. I spend far too much time on this podcast when I should be doing other things. But his first appearance, Strange Tales 75, right? That is a retro first appearance. Did you know this?
I didn't know that.
His actual first appearance is in Tales to Astonish 27, the one I mentioned earlier, The Man in the Anthill. But there was in Strange Tales 75, they do a story about a character who's called the Hulk. And then they reprinted it, and he's created by this scientist, and the scientist's assistant is called Blake. And then they reprinted it because they didn't want him to be called the Hulk. So I think they changed it to like Gargatron or something. Like, I don't know, Gargatron. And then for some reason, they changed Blake to Pym. Retroactively inserted, as he does. That's what he does, doesn't he? He's a bad smell that finds his way into every group and every party. He'll be there, just on the edge of the crowd,
like a terrible science fart.
Ugh. Well, there you go. Okay, are you ready for some potted history?
Yes, please.
Now, warning, trigger warning here. I don't know if it's a trigger warning, but warning. I did write this on the train coming back from a gig, having drunk some wine. And I haven't really reread it, but I thought it was hilarious at the time. Here are Hank Pym, a man of many faces and names, all of them a little bit weird. Hank Pym first appears in Tales to Astonish, The Man in the Anthill. That's the third time I've said that. A pre-Marvel Universe short sci-fi horror stories. So in many ways, it's his creepy anti-seed from which everything else grows. Is the universe itself fundamentally a bit wrong? Because it all comes from Hank. Maybe. Drunken Colin thought that was a very good point. Hank is a 1950s sci-fi monster movie style rugged scientist pissing around with ants. He makes himself really small, gets stuck in an anthill like a twat. Okay, any sense of this? We're going to have to put an explicit on this one. He somehow gets out and burns all his shrinky serum. But perhaps jealous of the fame the Fantastic Four have found and the infinitely more likable Reed Richards, even though he's also pretty awful at this point, Hank thinks, sod it, I'll make it again. I want to be a superhero, mama. He becomes the Ant-Man to fight off some commies who are after his anti-radiation pills, never seeming to really do it for moral reasons, more for the sheer thrill it gives him. Hank continues to be the Ant-Man, even getting young socialite Janet Van Dyne to be his partner, the Wasp. There is no way this is not well creepy. And fighting such legendary deadly enemies as the Living Eraser, Egghead, and yes, Mr. Alexander Gentry, the Porcupine, R.I.P. I'm talking too fast. He's also immediately feeling insecure and regretful that he called himself Ant-Man rather than Captain Brilliant, and so thinks, I'm going to make myself really big and call myself, I don't know, Giant Man. There you go. That's the first part of the Pym story. Yeah. So I'd like to see a Hank Pym story if it was the Marvel Universe. I could see them doing that, actually, in universe. You know, a kind of afternoon data on that is like the Hallmark channel, is it?
Yeah.
They do like the Elvis story, but it's kind of made for TV. I'd love to see the Hank Pym story.
I think it would work as a made for TV movie because, yeah, he's just horrendous. Is it coming across that I'm not a fan of Hank Pym? I'm not sure
a fan. Well, let's get into why.
Clear.
So first of all, we're going to look at the individual comics we read. Tales to Astonish 35, which is the first official appearance of Ant-Man. This came out after the film The Incredible Shrinking Man. That was 1957. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, but a long while ago. It's been a while since I've seen that one. I would have watched it when I was a kid.
Whenever I see a spider, because I seem to remember it's a man who just keeps shrinking, but in that it's a horror thing.
Yeah,
which I guess the original Ant-Man idea was. I think he's pretty sort of savvy and cool. He creates unstable molecules. I think it might be him who created it before Fantastic Four.
I noticed that he talks about unstable molecules, and this is before FF, so I think he got there first.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. I think he's a fundamental cog. Yeah. He really is, but a wrong one, an off one.
One thing I did like about this first issue is, like, he makes a statement and then there's lots of little footnotes with like actual facts attached to it. Like about he says, in each colony there are only a few females. Footnote: females are called queens.
Great, thanks. But I feel like Hank made them put that in it. Yeah. It's the kind of nerdy detail he go for. He has made a costume to stop ant bites. I like that he's thought ahead. He's also when he goes to get the shrinking juice, he gets it from the safe, but to open this, you've got a safe there with a dial, but then he turns an ornament to make the safe open. That's not how safes work, is it? Anyway, I like the way when he talks to the ants. So he has made an ant helmet which can talk to ants straight away. He's got an ant costume. He notes he's into ants big time. He's got a bit of a boner for ants. Yeah. He talks to them. I like the way he talks in slightly old language, as in thought. You know how Asgardians talk in Shakespearean language is like a Marvel thing. Also, I think ants do, because he says things like "heed me." Yeah. That's the only example I found, but there are others where I love this idea that anything that isn't a normal human living in modern age has to talk in sort of Shakespearean language, including, Asgardians, foreigners, ants, and sometimes blind girlfriends. They are talking this.
That's the main groups.
They're the main subsets. The idea is the Russians are trying to get an anti-radiation pill off him. The Americans have designed an anti-radiation pill, and if the Russians, he doesn't say Russians, it just says communist spies, whatever. And I like the idea that we can't let them get this anti-radiation pill, otherwise we won't be able to radiate them all. It's kind of the implication. That it's like saying we can't let them discover bandages. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of ant info. What he does discover is when he shrinks, he's actually still got his strength. Yeah.
So he's sort of proportionately equivalent to a grown man still like punching you, even if he's 2 inches tall.
Which I don't think they do enough in the movies. I feel there's a little bit of that. Or maybe they do it. I'm going to say right from the off, I didn't love any of the movies. I thought
they're not my
2 and 3
my
were
favorites.
I think 2, actually, Ant-Man and the Wasp might be the worst Marvel film out of sheer boring nothingness. I think others make worse mistakes, but that's the dullest. Anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. It's down there. I just don't remember much about it.
Yeah, the first one's quite fun because of Edgar Wright's influence, I imagine, even though he was the original director, wasn't he?
You can still see flashes of what would have been Edgar Wright's film in there, like the sequences where his sort of sidekick friend describes things and the people are mouthing his words as he sort of does little flashback descriptions of what happens. And he's doing all their voices. That feels in a kind of
Ocean's 11 type way.
Yeah, that feels very Edgar Wright. There's like little touches of the film that he would have made still left. I'd love to have seen Edgar Wright's version. I think that would have been great.
Yeah. And I think the bit where they're fighting on the kids' train, on the sort of kids' train track, and you see it as this huge explosion, and then it cuts to what someone who was normal size would see, and it's just a tiny train falling over. Yeah. That's a very, very funny gag. The other thought I had on this comic was I noticed how Russian and / foreign characters in these comics, they always look like propaganda pics, as in they look like posters that are displaying a swarthy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
They're all sort of craggy or bearded or just sort of slightly grubby looking. Slightly
deformed faces. Slightly extended or sort of, exactly. So that's the first appearance of the Ant-Man, if you will. Then he gets Wasp to be his companion, as I say. We didn't read the one where she comes in. I guess we'll do that when we get to Wasp. She's a socialite. She's a lot younger than him. I think she's 10 years. He treats her like a kid right from the beginning, but she's immediately in love with him. And then eventually kind of gives in or they get married.
He's just sort of horrible to her.
He's never nice to her, and this is going to come out. This is going to end very badly. But
do you know, it wasn't the first issue that I hate. That first one that we just talked about, actually, that was fine. He was all right in that. But
he's still a bit of a dick, though. He's still just like, I can't quite put my finger why at that point.
No, I do know what you mean, but a little bit. But it was this. But it's this one where I actively moved to just fully disliking him because
Giant Man.
He talks. The way he talks to her is awful. Mm-hmm. The flip side to that is as well the way that they write Janet is terrible. She's a terribly written character. They give her awful lines to say, and she just it's very clearly written by a man. It's like there's nothing.
She's like the heiress to a fortune as well, isn't she?
Yeah, but she says things like, "Why couldn't I have fallen in love with a nice simple butcher or baker?" I'm like, oh come on. Does anyone actually talk like that?
Her only interest is marriage and clothes.
Yeah,
and she's obsessed with him.
She's just really an underserved character in all of those early ones.
I think Janet becomes a very good character, right?
She does. But the ones we're reading,
she's got away from this arsehole.
Yeah, but he's just. Oh, I just really didn't like him. He's not.
I just think he's a buffoon as well, though. And he's a bad guy. Don't get me wrong. He becomes a bad guy later on, but he's a sexist and talks down to her. But I love that it starts where it's the first of his buffoonish experiments. Hank will go on to create Ultron, who's one of the worst baddies of all, cause all sorts of awful decisions, do dreadful things. But this is the first one where he's just drank his giant potion and just destroyed the entire house. And just the first shot is him going, with this house. Sticking out of the house with the roof on his head and stuff, and Janet being like, "Oh, Hank, what have you done?" But what I like about his character, I don't like this as in I wouldn't like to know this person, but what I like the detail that sort of organically grows with him, and he comes from being an absolute nothing 1950s scientist type dude, is this idea that he's insecure, and it leads him to do stupid things. And I was surprised how I feel. I don't know how much I'm reading in, but even here where he's not a part of a bigger universe particularly yet, I think he has joined the Avengers by this point. They've just been formed, but he's but already I feel like he's insecure, and I feel like he knows he's not as good as the others, and so he keeps overreaching. It reminds me, do you remember this Armando Iannucci thing called Time Trumpet? Did you ever see that? It was the idea of projecting forward as to what time would be like kind of now, I guess. So it was like, so it had characters who were big then, and they were played by older actors as if in the future. And David Cameron, I just remember this whole thing about, I'm talking about David Cameron, David Cameron at the time was desperate to please and make people like him. And it sort of ends where they're all just these people like shaking the hand going, I mean, like what he did in the end, I mean, and you never find out what it is, but it's just the idea that he's done something really obscene, which, I mean, then all the pig stuff came out, didn't it? So, I mean, anyway, that's Hank I see Hank a bit like that.
The David Cameron of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, you really.
Do you know what? Now you put it like that, yeah, I still don't like him, but I get it.
Yeah, I mean, don't like David Cameron for that matter. He's very patronizing, very self-important.
Yeah,
I like
he says things like, he says things to Jan like, now button those ruby lips until I finish this job.
You could say that to me if I start going on too much, Nick. If I start, we'll just go, hey, buddy, button those ruby lips. We got a podcast to finish.
All right, it's good to have a code word.
There's a bit where the police turn up and just start shooting him, which I found really funny. They're really trigger happy. Also, I mean, that's not funny in a modern social context, obviously, but it just, there's a hot dog man hiding in the bushes. I'm not sure why there's a hot dog man hiding in the bushes, I've said. Some of this I wrote quite a while ago, slightly drunk, as I say, but there is a hot dog man is hiding in the bushes.
There is, and I hadn't picked up on that. And yeah, he's just hanging around with his little box saying hot dogs 15 cents in a bush, as you normally do.
But he's in a bush. He's not on the street. I've wanted to read this comic for a long time because when I met Stan Lee in Nottingham Forbidden Planet, he signed my copy of Marvel's, not the Kurt Busiek thing. It's a big encyclopedia of Marvel that he'd done the forward to, basically. I've still got it. Nice. And it says it says something like Marvel's quirkiest villain, and it's the Living Eraser. And that's who this guy's, the Living Eraser. And he's got a quite awesome power, although it is obviously ridiculous, that he sort of waves his hands a bit. Yeah. And people are erased, but like bit by bit.
Yeah, like you're rubbing out a drawing. He just sort of swipes across, and that takes a chunk out of the middle of you.
If Grant Morrison was doing this, of course, it would go very meta. But really in here, it's just literally, oh great, we can draw a bit less. But
you're right. Though,
I love it.
He does feel like the sort of villain you'd see on Doom Patrol rather than.
Yeah, very quirky.
Yeah,
Ant-Man has a lot of quirky villains though, which is a fun aspect of Ant-Man.
Partly to make up for the fact that he's a bellend.
That he's absolutely bellend. But they have like the odd. They just have like one thing.
Yeah.
Like I can erase people, but there's also ones, I think there's one who's like a window cleaner. I read this like, there's a series I read, I was going to suggest it for this, but it's not as fun as you want it to be, but it's Al Ewing did like a 5-parter where it's all different Ant-Man. It's all the Ant-Mans, including like a future Ant-Man. And there's one where all the some of his biggest baddies from the original series turn up, and it is like the cleaner. This, like those old school Justice Society villains, like the fiddler, the gambler, those kind of things. They're all like that. But one is literally a window cleaner. I'm not sure how but yeah, I don't think he has powers. I think he just cleans windows, but also
he just does it really, really well.
Does it really well?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is no crime. There is no crime.
2 swipes and done.
Yeah, he just charges too much, and that's his. When his reign of terror never end. So I like the Living Eraser. I was not disappointed. I love his jowly face. He looks like that cartoon dog. What is it called? Not Snoopy.
Droopy.
Droopy.
Yeah.
I mean Droopy, don't I? I love it. I imagine it. Yeah. What else have we got? There's a bit where Hank makes Janet study the pills. That was funny. And so they're absolute drug addicts, these guys. Hank has created this serum, which, like the very rare times I may have dabbled, you feel very weird and awful and out your body, or even just having things like, antidepressant pills. Imagine having a pill that makes you big and small repeatedly. It's not it's messing with their brains and their bodies. I'm sorry, but that's not even a Mark Miller Ultimates thing. That's just very clear from the beginning.
Yeah.
These are like, you know, like a rich junkie couple. That's what we're looking at here, who are really bad for each other. There's so much drama. I'd love to see them made for TV show. He's also, I think he's quite manic and possibly bipolar. I'm not trying to say it in a flippant way, but if I was, I'm not also a psychiatrist or psychologist, but I think, do you know what I mean? There's a bit where he takes these pills and he says, I can accomplish anything. They make me feel so good. They make you. So when he becomes Giant Man, he's just jumping on buildings and like grabbing stuff and trying to get the living eraser. And there's a bit where he goes to the living eraser's planet because he's an alien. Basically, he's not erasing you, he's teleporting you. But does that mean like a chunk of your chest appears on the other planet first before? Anyway.
Yeah, what stops all the bits from falling out? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure if any of this science holds up, if I'm honest. There's a bit where all these alien spaceships are trying to shoot him down, and he's taking his pills and he is just laughing. He's just running from building to building. And I'm like, Hank, they could still shoot you. You're just a bit bigger.
Yeah.
He says he's 12 feet. Well, he is not 12 feet. He's like Godzilla size at this point.
I was going to say that. They make a big point at the start about how he can only grow to 12 feet tall. Otherwise, he'll just sort of fall over and collapse under his own weight. And then later on, he picks someone up in his hand. And I'm like, you're not going to pick someone up in your hand if you're 12 feet. You're not that tall.
I just love the idea of this off his head, gigantic human jumping around and everyone just going, someone kill him. Like, someone kill him. What is he doing? He's going to kill us all. Do you know what I mean?
You're talking about him potentially being bipolar. They have a very weird attitude to like his mental health in some of the other issues. Well,
it does come up. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute when we get to Yellowjacket. Oh, don't worry. I've covered the whole. I've gone deep, Pym. I've just found a line that Wasp says at one point. She says, I miss it when men don't whistle at me. Can't remember why, but that's just an example of what you were saying earlier.
Said no woman ever.
Oh, I miss it when men don't whistle at me. So they beat the living eraser. At one point, they get the power of erasing, and then there's just this funny image of Hank and Janet waving their arms. It is all quite fun, despite being, horribly old-fashioned and sexist. Despite being a founding member of the Avengers, Hank and Janet leave pretty quickly. It turns out the old growth shrink pills are messing up Hank's body seriously, or at least that's what he says. I think he just got bored. I get it. I'm ADHD myself, Hank. But when Janet gets kidnapped, he asks the Avengers for help. But because of weirdly specific rules around how big and little he can be, he creates a new identity, Goliath. Also, at this time, he sort of accidentally creates Ultron. Oh, Hank. So now we're on Avengers number something.
28.
28. So still early in the Marvel Universe. Hank has come back because he doesn't get another comic, does he, after Tales to Astonish? He never really takes off on his own. But he can only get, He can only get to like 15 feet. And no, he can get to a certain height.
It was 12, wasn't it? They said in the previous one.
Yeah, but then as Goliath, I think it ends up. I think there's a point where he's just like 8 feet, and then, but he can't. He literally can't shrink for a while. So he really is just a big man. He's not even big growing or shrinking by that point.
He has to have like a 15-minute break before he grows or shrinks again or something like that. He has to, there's like a.
Which Cap immediately ignores. He says that to Cap. He says, if I shrink quicker than 15 minutes, I'll die. And then like on the next page, Cap goes, come on, Hank, get small really quick, please. He says, chop, chop.
Old high pockets.
Yeah, come on, high pockets. Stop mucking around.
Also, what I found weird was they didn't know he was Hank Pym until this issue.
Yeah, I've got that.
Like, I was like, I thought they'd have already known that.
He's one of the original Avengers.
Yeah, and suddenly they're like, oh, turns out it was this guy, Hank Pym.
I was actually picturing if you did that Avengers movie with Hank and Janet in it, the big fight with all the aliens and stuff. And all I can say is it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed my brief fantasy journey. They were jumping around. I think they fit in fine. I think I would have preferred them in that first movie to Hawkeye and Black Widow, who are a bit Matrixy and stuff, aren't they? I think in some. Oh, and Hank could totally be like possessed by Loki and do terrible things.
Yeah, I think
the world wasn't ready for Ant-Man at that point. You think?
No, I think the Marvel Universe version just isn't interesting enough.
No,
it's all right, but
I mean, I like where you had Michael Douglas as Hank, and you had those little clips of him in the '60s fighting in the Cold War and stuff.
Yeah, actually,
that was great.
Now I've read some Hank. That's pretty good casting because Michael Douglas normally plays sleazy, creepy characters. So
yeah, sleazy, creepy,
right.
temperamental, quite narcissistic, and obviously famously marries much younger women. So, perfect.
Spot on.
Also, not only do they not know his identity, but Scarlet Witch has just happened to sew him a new costume in case he came back.
Yeah.
So not only, because I'm a woman, when I have time, I just make other costumes for the other guys in case they ever want them.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
For people who've left in case they decide to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, in case they come back. That's bizarre. Oh, I love there's a bit where someone shouts Avengers Assemble and they're already sat in a car. They're already like driving. So, we're already here, guys. We're already in the car. So they're fighting the Collector at this point. The Collector I can't even remember. Is he Collector Jan? He's
Collector Jan.
I don't think the Collector is a superpowered being as such at this point. I think he's literally just someone who collects things, almost like the window cleaner.
Yeah.
I think he's just Lovejoy.
Yeah, he just looks like an old bloke that has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think he has powers particularly, does he? He just attacks them with things he's collected.
Yeah.
He is just an antiques dealer, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's true. And at one point, he froze at Hank the most precious beans on earth, which were the beans from Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah. And then these beans somehow become giant men. But I don't think that happens in the story, does it? Or do they become beanstalks and then giant men come down?
I mean, in the story, they become beanstalks and there are giants at the top. But in the comic, he just throws them down. There's a bit of a mist and then there's some giant men. I don't think that's... Yeah. I mean, you didn't need to make the Jack and the Beanstalk connection if you're not even going to bother to put a beanstalk in there.
I like the Collector just as Lovejoy gone rogue. Lovejoy was he was one of our greatest prime ministers after Foggy and whoever we spoke of last week. But Lovejoy was a long-running series. Famous actor, of course, Ian McShane. Yeah. Brilliant actor. I never watched it. I don't think I ever watched Lovejoy.
No, it was that sort of Sunday evening Antiques Roadshow type TV.
He'd also be very good casting as the Collector.
Yeah. Although isn't
or now. It's Benicio del Toro.
It's Benicio del Toro, isn't it? Yeah.
Who's great as well. I like he plays him like a sort of weird mime artist type character, which fits. Can I continue, Nick?
You may.
Am I going at a good pace here? Are we happy with this speed? Slow me. Just remember, just shout, what shut those ruby lips? Is that... That's all we got to say. Hank hangs around with the Avengers for a bit as basically just a very tall man, not even a giant man, just a tall man. I cannot stress that enough. He does a bit of surgery on the Vision as Ant-Man. I'm still useful, which is part of the Kree-Skrull War. He goes inside Vision. I think that's quite a famous one, but I read it. It's actually quite boring, but it looks amazing because it's Neil Evans. Yeah. Then finally, Hank has his first massive, proper, official breakdown. And thus we have Yellowjacket, the strangest and most upsetting of the eras. So we looked at where Yellowjacket first appears, and then we looked at where Yellowjacket and Hank are forever shamed. And they never really, in my opinion, are redeemed from this. So do you want to talk a bit about the first appearance first?
Yeah, the first appearance is like proper mental comic stuff from like about 1969, Avengers 60. And it's basically the issues about Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, has sent out invites because she's marrying someone called Yellowjacket, who nobody has ever really met. They don't really know who he is. She's decided to marry him. He basically appears to be an arse. He behaves like horribly.
Yeah, they're all like, why are you marrying this awful guy, Jan? You used to go out with that lovely guy, Hank. He was so nice to you.
But no one knows who he is. He behaves horribly. And it sort of turns out that it is Hank as Yellowjacket. The explanation being he banged his head and it made him schizophrenic.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how mental. I don't think that's how mental health
I don't think he even
works.
I don't think he even banged his head. I think it was a gas. I think a gas was released that turned him schizophrenic.
It's a gas that makes him schizophrenic.
Sure.
And ultimately, Jan's explanation is, well, I knew it was him, so I thought I'd just marry him as Yellowjacket because that seemed all right.
But why did she not just tell everyone it was Hank? Why didn't he just tell everyone he's Hank? He knows he's Hank, right? Does he know he's Hank?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't know he's Hank. He thinks he's Yellowjacket.
Well, he thinks his Christian name is Yellowjacket.
I didn't really get any of this.
So weird.
I'll be honest.
What's about how like the mask thing? I know you've got Superman takes his glasses off and he becomes Superman and all that stuff. That's an acceptable suspension of disbelief in the comic. You have to accept that, otherwise you can't accept Superman at all. But this is stupid. Like he's only got like half a mask. Like I really don't think if you were wearing a mask now, I'd suddenly go, sorry, where did Nick go? Yeah, I mean, Nick is, for the listeners, Nick is holding his hand over his eyes, and I know it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a moment, to be fair, I went, hang on, who's this? But then I very quickly went, it's Nick.
Yeah.
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 But
I don't think it works. Also, like they've worked with him for years. They'd recognize his voice.
Yeah. And he can shrink.
Yeah.
It's quite funny, actually. It could be quite a funny level. Do you remember that bit in the film Eric the Viking where he's told he has invisible powers, but he doesn't? And he's just like, he's like holding this cloth over his face and goes, now you see me, now you don't. And so they're all just like going, what are you doing? But it's a bit like that. This is so weird, I've written. Roy Thomas, who wrote it, loves a weird wedding for some reason. If you go back through his run on, he's the writer of Avengers for a while. He's sort of Stan Lee's successor. I like a Roy Thomas comic, but more because they're mad than because they're good writing, whatever. But there's like the Swordsman and Mantis. There's all the Vision and Scarlet Witch stuff. He's really into these weird weddings that don't make any sense. The worst line of this comic, I thought, was, when you speak of speed, Jan, you do well not to forget the name of the Black Panther.
Yeah.
What? How would you even get that line out? First of all, she's speaking of speed. When you speak of speed, Jan, you would do well not to forget the name of the Black Panther. You can guess what's happening there. Also,
they all do a bit of referring to themselves in this. Like Hawkeye's like, old Hawkeye's going to do the Avengers Assemble bit. Like, you're just talking to a butler who's been gagged and hanging up on a hook at that point. I don't think you need to. You need to tell him who you are.
I guess it's what's the word? Comforting.
Yeah,
I've been through that to go, oh yeah, old Hawkeye's here. We'll be all right. But all the guests are just superheroes.
Yeah.
And what I like is that so as always with superhero weddings, it gets hijacked by supervillains. That happens pretty much all the time. But this time, it is a group called the Circus of Crime, who are trying to beat Thor. They want to kill Thor. They consist of a man with a hat that can hypnotize people, two brothers that throw each other, a clown who is literally just a clown. He's not even the Joker. He's just a clown with a couple of devices, but not particularly deadly ones. It's like fighting an actual clown.
I mean, he's got a unicycle and a walking stick. He's not really that.
Yeah. I don't think he even has a laser or anything like that.
No.
And also a Princess Python, which is a woman with a python.
Yeah.
And somehow they're like, we're going to just beat Thor. This is it. How could he possibly be? Oh, and also a man who is from a human cannonball. He is a human cannibal, but he doesn't have a cannon. So he's just a man who normally shoots out of a human cannibal. So he's just very strong-haired, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're there to they realize Thor isn't there, so they attack everyone. And then
their plan is to just sort of cater the wedding for a bit and then eventually attack Thor.
Oh, they hide the python in the cake.
Yeah, and they get discovered because someone walks into the kitchen and they're all stood there. It's not exactly.
Also, pythons aren't that poisonous, and I feel like even if they were, Thor's probably dealt with more dangerous creatures quite easily.
Yeah.
And also he's not there. So they're like, we'll just put the python in the cake and just... It's a lot of fun. But what I also found very strange and very funny is that when they realize these baddies are here destroying the wedding, all the other superheroes, i.e. the Fantastic Four and so on, just say, oh, we'll leave you to it. This is your fight.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to get... We don't want to, like... Don't know. Like, we don't... This is because we're in Avengers Mansion. We don't want to, like, get involved. What? There's no... They all just leave.
Yeah, it's not...
very weird. It's very weird. So anyway, later on, Hank completely loses it. This is the shame of Hank. This is the real fall of Hank Pym. He's now Yellowjacket. He's a member of the Avengers, but he feels like they don't really like him. He's not a particularly impressive superhero. No one respects him. He's still quite angry and violent and unpleasant. And Tigra calls him a cold fish, I noted. And she later has a thing with him, by the way, and has a baby with him. But it's not him, it's Scrawl Hank. Don't know, just a bit of something I remembered there. What I love, he's shot someone in the back in a fight. We haven't read that comic. But presumably he's in the middle of a big fight. And then Hank and Captain America was about to talk this baddie down, and then Hank shot her. Classic Hank. So they're court-martialing him. And what I love is the Avengers at this point still is probably only about 7 people. But they talk like it's this ages-old institution with rules and charters, and there are ways we do things, there are ways we don't things. Iron Man, Cap, and Thor sit as the judges, but they're just like in the living room of the mansion with a table there. And Thor is a god. He's an actual god from myth, and he's just sat holding a gavel. I think he's holding... Is it gavel or gavel? Gavel.
Gavel is the word.
Gavel.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just sat there to court-martial Hank and see, you know, order, should Hank still be an Avenger? I love this. It makes me think it's like when kids set up a club. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, I set up my ghost hunting club. It's that kind of feel. Or a bit like Scientology or Trump is what I've read. In that way that you kind of create a fake medal for someone to sort of go... I mean, they're all fake, I suppose, but something where you've just gone... Do you see where Scientology, like, they couldn't give Tom Cruise a big enough award, so they just invented... I mean, again, it's all invented, but, like, they said we're going to give him the medal of, you know, ultimate honor or something. Yeah. It feels very like that, anyway.
Also, it feels a bit like the Serpent Society with their unionizing. It's like, no matter what team you're in, got to have bylaws. Yeah,
totally. I mean, at least that's kind of a business.
Yeah. Whereas
this is just a club of absolute losers at this point. This is not the movie Avengers, is it? I think some of it's actually quite good writing. I've put here. He's impotent. Janet tries to get him. Come on, Hank, come to bed. He can't. You know, he can't perform in that way.
I think the writing for Janet is still quite bad.
Oh yeah,
because she's very much still like just a sort of trophy wife. Yeah, he says.
Also, he doesn't make the money; she makes the money. There's something like that, I think.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying it's good. Right, I'm just saying there are you can see why he's become this awful man.
Yeah, I get it. I get why they're doing it. It's just.
I mean, I've written here Wasp is very horny. Like, she's quite... and very outdated.
She says things like, let's just sneak off to bed and cuddle and kiss. And I'm like, he's just been absolutely horrible to you. Why are you saying that?
Yeah. I mean, in reality, you know, people do turn people who are awful to them into, like, great people. Again, I'm not defending him. I feel like it's interesting as a character where they've done this.
Yeah.
But I guess, unfortunately, the world around it. But basically, he gets worse and worse, more and more mean, horrible, angry. And when it comes, it's shocking, is what I've written. What a monster. He loses it. And, first, is she small at that point? He tries to, like, smash her with his fist. But then there's an infamous one image where he does the, which is always used for these kind of scenes, I've noticed, which is the sort of back slap across the face. He whacks her. He domestically abuses her.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah. It's pretty grim. And then the next scene you see her in, she's wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. And you do see the black eye, don't you?
Yeah.
Awful. And then what happens at the end? I've kind of forgotten. They kick him out of the Avengers?
Yeah, they basically do. He's got these kind of robots set up to attack, which he was going to save everyone from to sort of prove his worth, because obviously he's just gone.
I forgot about that. He's got a mad plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And he does
He's
do
basically
that.
going to create a false battle.
Yeah.
He's created a robot that's going to attack the Avengers. They won't be able to beat it. He'll know how to beat it. And then
and that does still
look
happen.
like a hero again.
That does still happen after the revelation that he's, beaten his wife. So when it comes to and he defeats them, they still just want him out. And he,
Yeah.
And he does accept that he should leave at that point. But yeah, I think the problem I have now with Hank Pym is I just find it, I don't know how you can bring someone back to being a hero character from that.
And I don't think they ever really have.
Yeah, they seem to sort of try a bit, because then the follow-up in West Coast Avengers, like when you said he's Dr. Pym, the scientific adventurer.
Yes, that is he is ostracized for ages, I've got. But then he becomes, sorry, go on.
No, you're saying he's ostracized.
He is ostracized, but then he eventually sort of joins the West Coast Avengers, but it's like, no, don't worry, I won't be an actual hero, I'll just be here. He's a bit like that, isn't he? He's a bit like, I'm so guilty. But I don't know if he ever, I haven't seen one where he really apologizes to Jan.
No, and then later on, he's like the sort of Earth scientist supreme, and he's back to being just quite arrogant again.
He calls himself the scientist supreme, like Doctor Strange is the sorcerer supreme.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cool idea, but should it be Hank?
No, it really shouldn't.
Is he one of the universe's top 10 cleverest people? I think he is.
I think he's in that list up there with like Reed Richards and Amadeus Cho and all those kind of ones that.
There is a moment in
Tony Stark,
yeah, of course. Moon Girl is number one, isn't she? Isn't she above Reed?
I think so.
There's a lot of angry male readers around that idea. What I do like is that he I love this baddie who's called The Voice, by the way, just to note him, has like a sort of boombox stuck in his throat and can control you with his voice. He's a Hungarian baddie. Anyway, but at the end, he what I do like is that they all just pile on him in West Coast Avengers, and it is a bit like that Tarantino movie Death Proof, in that there is a slight catharsis in they're all just kicking the crap out of him because they've been mind controlled. But I wondered whether are we sort of going, let's just see Hank get really beaten up.
I mean,
kind of want that to be that's what I mean. It's quite nice to see.
Yeah.
I've put read out the end. It's a terrible moral.
Oh, the end is him.
36.
The end is him getting back together with Jan.
Yes.
And her saying, "You're a great man, Hank Pym, a great man." Oh, that's horrible. Yes, it's horrible. I hate it.
It's really bad.
Also, it turns out that he had a previous wife that he thought was dead, but she wasn't. She's still alive. And Jan says, "Well, I guess we were never really married since Maria was alive." Yeah. No, he was just a bigamist. He just married two people.
Yeah. He says, when I came to the West Coast Adventures, I was a has-been in disgrace. With you, I've recovered my self-respect, my powers, even my wife. You've brought me full circle. I guess we never really were married since Maria was alive. If so, Jan, that means we were never really divorced either. Maybe the bad times don't have to count anymore, but the good times will count forever. That's literally saying, forget all that time I hit you and tried to kill you. Because, like, do you remember when we did all that fun stuff? And she says, you're a great man, Hank Pym. A great man. Shame on Marvel writers. I think that might have been John Byrne. That is not good. Yeah.
No, I didn't enjoy it at all. Steve Englehart was that
Steve Englehart, is it? Yeah. We expected better.
Yeah.
Anyway, for some reason, Hank goes on to become Yellowjacket again, even though that was the wife-beating, crime-faking nutcase character that he had. For some reason, he decided that's the one that people like. He remarries Jan, I think.
Yeah.
By this point, Jan's, which surprised me because Jan's quite a strong character by this point and quite kind of, has her own autonomy and stuff. Then there's a secret of invasion of Earth. Some people get turned into Skrulls. One of them is Hank. At the end of that invasion, Wasp is heroically killed. She dies heroically. And in perhaps his creepiest decision yet, Hank decides to take his dead wife's superhero identity and become the Wasp. Seriously, Hank, what is wrong with you? That's in Mighty Avengers, which I really enjoyed that one. I like that they're delving into his craziness, his eccentricity. I'm talking about a bad person as an eccentric here. I don't mean to do that, but he's got like a pocket universe he's kind of created, so he can now create headquarters that he can put in his pocket, and then we can all get in them. And then by shrinking, so they play around with all that stuff, which is really fun. I think I enjoyed the Mighty Adventures. You got Hercules, and I think now he's like, I take it that I know I'm a dick. Well, I still think I'm cool. I'm the scientist supreme, but I know you all think I'm a dick. Well, let's just operate at that level that we all think I'm a dick. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's where we're at the end. After that, there's a weirdly non-eventful event called Age of Ultron, almost nothing to do with the film, where Hank is killed in the past by Wolverine, which messes everything up, and I think is an excuse for Marvel to wipe away his incredibly sus decisions. So I think by doing some time stuff, they go, wow, he's all right. At some point, he gets merged with Ultron. He becomes a spokesman for all AI Avengers. The way I see him is he's very much like the cancelled guy in, I don't know, TV or film or comedy or whatever, that there's someone at the top who really likes and keeps bringing back. Naming no names, I've seen that happen with like within comedy where radio or TV people keep going, what about putting so-and-so in? And everyone's like, I don't think that's a good idea anymore. And they're like, but he's my best mate. I feel like that's what Marvel are doing with Hank. They're like, come on, go on, just have a bit of Hank.
Everyone loves Hank Pym.
It's Hank. He's a cornerstone of the Marvel Universe. So that's HP, Hank Pym. Right. We were hoping to do a couple of eps today. Not sure that's going to happen in time, but should we jump onto the second Ant-Man? That is the Ant-Man you all know and love as Paul Rudd, Scott Lang. What do you got for us? Let's open those ruby lips.
Scott Lang, created by David Michelini, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and John Byrne. First appearance in Avengers 181 in December 1978. Height 6 foot / also variable. Weight 86 kilograms / variable.
3 kilograms heavier than Hank. Maybe it's those 3 kilograms that make him a better man.
3 kilograms of conscience.
Yeah. The part of his brain that doesn't do Hank stuff. Yeah. Sorry, keep talking. I'm just checking my buddy's not been eaten by foxes. No, we're good. Keep going. Yeah,
that's good. We need a double klaxon here because his full name is Scott Edward Harris Lang.
Ooh.
Double middle name.
Daniel, sound the double name, middle name klaxon, please. There it is. Beautiful.
And he's nickname Scotty. It's not much of a nickname, is it really? That's just his name.
You've got here, he's also known as Myrmidon and Nova.
Yeah. He must have obviously spent a brief time as Nova. I don't know what the Myrmidon thing is. I didn't look into that. No idea. So in the distinct difference to Hank Pym, he starts out as a bad guy. He's a reformed criminal who steals an Ant-Man suit in order to save the life of a surgeon who can perform life-saving surgery on his daughter Cassie. So look, he's already morally got a leg up on Hank Pym there. He's stealing to save his daughter's life.
Yeah. Even with the prison time, as you say. I think
yeah.
he's literally gone on the opposite journey of Hank. Is this Marvel trying to redeem Ant-Man as a concept, if not the man?
I think so. I think they're trying to say, okay, let's make him...
Let's do the opposite. He's a bad guy gone good rather than a good guy gone bad. Okay.
In the process of that, he crosses paths with this evil industrialist called Darren Cross, who becomes his regular nemesis, and who himself will take on the mantle of Yellowjacket in an evil, well, a more evil way.
Is that in the film?
Yes, and that is in the film. So Darren Cross is the character in the film who... In
the comics, he's just a really big, heavy baby man.
Yeah.
In his pants. But like steroided. Sometimes. It's really strange. He's not like the Hulk. He's like steroid sort of warped body. He almost looks like Slane when he has a warp spasm as 2000 AD.
Yes.
But in his pants. Yeah, anyway. Darren Cross.
Yep.
Also, can I just say, I love the actor who plays him in the movies, but what they did making him MODOK in the third movie is unforgivable.
I mean,
MODOK is one of the best characters, and I hate it when they do that in superhero movies where they like go, oh, let's just make it this person instead. Yeah. Let's just like, do you know what I mean? I don't mean like Falcon becoming Captain America, that's different, but just like going, oh, let's put MODOK in it, but we'll make it so Darren Cross becomes MODOK. No.
Yeah.
Why?
With some really, really bad CGI.
Awful. And MODOK's one of the best.
Yeah.
He's got to be James Gunn. He's got to be done by someone like James Gunn. He's a Rocket or Groot type character. He's not. Yeah. Anyway, you do not mess around with MODOK like that. It's unforgivable. Sorry, carry on.
No, so Scott Lang, he worked for Stark International for a while in the design department there. And he's also spent time as a hero for hire and as part of the Avengers. It's clearly an Ant-Man thing. You've got to be an Avenger at some point if you're Ant-Man. He briefly dated former superhero and private investigator Jessica Jones, who had her own Marvel Netflix series along with the Daredevil ones.
That's one where there's a really horrifying image where she wakes up and he's lying next to her dead and ants are eating him. Yeah. Can't remember why. But it's an illusion.
Yes.
Is it Purple Man? It's probably Purple Man.
I think it's Purple Man. Yeah. But his relationship with Jessica Jones ends when she reveals that she's pregnant with Luke Cage's baby. Bit awkward. That really.
Nice bit of soap opera there.
Following the death and resurrection of his daughter Cassie, she's a superhero herself, part of the Young Avengers, so we'll get onto her at some point. Scott Lang sets up his own business called Ant-Man Security Solutions, which ultimately ends up getting shut down, as all these things do. And when last seen, Scott Lang was off in outer space with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, well done, Scott.
Yeah.
So he also gets killed in the Avengers Disassembled event, which was a big event where all the Avengers got disassembled, got destroyed. We'll talk about it. We won't spoil why or who here, but he was one of the... So I feel like for a lot of the time, Scott has been, until the movies came out, he's been one of those guys where it's like, oh, we need to kill someone. Let's kill Scott Lang. You know what I mean? Let's kill the other Ant-Man. He's very much the other Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And it's weird that now he is the Ant-Man and Hank is the other Ant-Man.
Yeah, Hank's the kind of...
probably the right decision, I guess.
Yes. Well, I would agree. We've made my feelings on Hank very clear at every point of this podcast.
Yeah. But how do you feel about Scott? Because I've got to be honest.
I like him.
I feel like now also he suffers from just being Paul Rudd, because obviously Paul Rudd's very successful. And so they've just gone. And I find that so cringe when writers try and do funny and they're not naturally funny. And they go, oh, we've got to write him like... who's the other one? Star-Lord, Chris Pratt. Yeah. And it just feels really like, oh, stop. It's like dad dancing or something, isn't it? Yeah,
I know what you mean. But I enjoyed the ones that we looked at. The kind of first one with him in where he's trying to save his daughter's life. I thought in that one he came across as a likable character, much more so than Hank, at least. I thought at least, and then I quite liked the one we read where he sets up the Ant-Man Security Solutions, and he's attacked by villains who are being recruited by this new app called Hench, where you can search for a supervillain to attack people.
That's a fun idea.
Concept. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is the idea is like they're going to kill someone, aren't they? Darren Cross has hired Whirlwind to kill him.
Yeah.
They haven't actually sealed the contract yet, so he doesn't actually kill him until you...
No.
That's almost like when you get an app and you can only get so much content until you subscribe. You get so much content free and then you subscribe. It's a very funny idea.
I quite liked it. It's like, you haven't got enough credit, so I can't kill him.
I guess that's the plus side of the Paul Rudd thing, is that we can... you haven't got enough credit on the account to do it. It's a very funny idea. But the plus side of that thing that I just said is kind of cringe, is that actually it opens it up. You can do fun Ant-Man stories.
Yeah.
It's hard to do a fun Hank Ant-Man story because he is a domestic abuser. Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that. It's not a funny thing, but it's just inherently ridiculous and just says so much about the writers at that time. Even though they're the late 60s, 70s, you think of them as trippy, and they did do cool stuff like all the Captain Marvel and all that, but they're also kids. They're quite stupid. I don't think they're bad guys. I don't think they agree with that, but I don't think they really understand story, or sort of, they understand story, but they don't get what that means if you do stuff like that. I mean, there's an even worse example with Ms. Marvel, which we'll get to one day, which is probably the worst thing anyone's ever done in a comic.
Yeah. It's sort of unintentional misogyny. I don't think they've set out to be misogynist, but they just have been. Well,
that's the weird thing, because they're no longer of the age where it's like Reed and Sue, where it's just, that is how people were, unfortunately. It's now they're just not thinking, because they don't think what that would imply, shall we say. Anyway, well, that's Scott. Anything else to say on Scott? I'm sorry, Nick, but I don't have much to say about him. I don't find him particularly interesting.
I enjoyed the ones that we read. It's been a while since I've read the full run, so I can't really remember a lot about it, I must admit. But
I'm not sure he's ever really made waves in the comics.
No, I think probably until the films, probably not. There is, of course, a third Ant-Man.
Yeah, should we hear about him?
Yeah. This Ant-Man is Eric O'Grady, created by Robert Kirkman and Phil Hester. Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead fame.
Yeah.
His first appearance is during a spin-off of an event comic, Civil War Choosing Sides, back in 2006. He's 5'11" and 83 kilograms. They're all about the same sort of height, your Ant-Men.
And all look exactly the same as well at that point.
Yeah.
They could literally be they could all be each other.
He's known as the Irredeemable Ant-Man for reasons that will become clear. Nickname Shrinky Dink. Not convinced on that one. Other aliases: Agent Spruce, Derek Sullivan, Eric O'Leary, Mantis, and the Slaying Mantis. And
also, doesn't he become Black Ant?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he becomes one of the Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is...
So it sounds like I'm really picking you up on your... Nick, I think you'll find...
I think you'll find you've got that
become
wrong.
Black Ant. Is a Black Ant a thing? Surely a Red Ant is more dangerous.
I mean, yeah, actually, Black Ant is just ant, isn't it, effectively?
Yeah. Harmless ant.
Yeah. Regular ant. He is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a bit of a dirtbag, to be honest, really. He accidentally knocks out Hank Pym, which leads his friend and fellow agent Chris to steal a new Ant-Man suit that Pym was working on. And following a Hydra attack that leads Chris dead, Eric dons the Ant-Man garb and makes a ham-fisted, self-centered attempt at being a hero. Very much in keeping with the original Ant-Man. He's got a terrible attitude towards women. He gets one woman pregnant and then dumps her before dating and dumping another woman when he discovers that she already has kids.
Awful. What is this?
Yeah. I mean, it seems one of the main powers of being Ant-Man is just being an absolute douchebag. He spends a bit of time with the Initiative, which we've talked about before, Thunderbolts and the Secret Adventures. And then he ultimately sacrifices his life to save a mother and her child in a vain attempt to redeem his generally horrible attitude to women. He's currently still dead because no one cares enough to bring him back.
Right. So I hate this. I've only read. I thought this was going to be fun and funny. When I saw it was what's his face, Robert Kirkman, I was like, great. Oh, I did not realize that. I think it might be one of the comics I've enjoyed least, certainly on our journey. Awful. So many words. I don't mean that so many words, because obviously Chris Claremont is very verbose, but very fun. And my favorite writer probably at Marvel, but just tedious, not funny, talking in that early 2000s sort of douchebag way. I guess it's sort of a bit like Scrubs, which I'd never really liked either, if I'm honest, but
it made me feel more like trying to be like a Tarantino film, but without the kind of like the without the pop culture coolness. Yeah, just sort of douchey men being a bit douchey.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like in stories where they could make the really bad choice, or just shoot someone, or make a good choice. Plot wise, I'm always up for do the bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's more exciting to see the thing we don't expect. But this is just like he's just gross and horrible, and doesn't he kind of date the person who dates his friend, and his friend gets killed, so he sort of just gets in there and stuff, and but it's not. I mean, I'd be up for if it's Bullseye or something. Yeah, if it's, and I'm not saying like good character, heroes, superheroes have to be always good or anything. Wolverine, Punisher, great, but it's not. It doesn't work. Basically, I guess anything can work, and this is just really horrible.
Well, he's neither a villain who's charming, so you can see the appeal of him, nor a hero who's more of that kind of anti-hero. He's just a horrible person. He's just an unpleasant person. Yeah. And I remember reading this years and years ago and thinking that I quite enjoyed it, and maybe I did at the time, but reading it now, I'm like you. I didn't like it. I just thought, maybe because I read it after reading Hank Pym stuff and then Scott Lang, this just felt like, I don't want to read about another Ant-Man that's horrible towards women. Yeah,
they've sort of he's thrown the pendulum right back, hasn't he?
Yeah. I was like, I don't think we need that. I think we're done with an Ant-Man who's a dreadful misogynist.
And I think generally the public, people who sort of know comics but not really, don't really know who Ant-Man is.
Yeah.
He's never settled on a character, has he? That's why in some ways I think Hank Pym, although an awful man, is the most interesting, and at least has elements of trying to. I think he does feel awful. I think he is mentally ill. I think he does beat himself up, but then also has I think he's bipolar and or ADHD. He has these huge, but I think his stuff was handled very badly.
Yeah, they do a bad job
they could just get rid of him as well. They could just get rid of him and he never comes back. But they keep bringing it back. Like I say, he is the cancelled comic who someone in the top is best mates with that keeps bringing back.
Yeah, and
bizarre.
Yeah, I'm happy for him to just disappear.
Right, let's do the order. Do we put any of these antis above Gambit?
No.
Okay, great. Daniel, I don't think we need the countdown. Let's save that. So we're probably saying middle.
I think middle for Scott Lang.
Should we do Scott first? Because in some ways he's the least controversial.
Yeah, I think he's sort of somewhere middly.
Would you put him above Psycho Man, Battling Jack Murdoch, Callisto?
I mean, maybe a bit. Maybe just below Absorbing Man.
Okay, fine. He is between Absorbing Man and Red Guardian. Now, remember, listeners, this is the comics version only. We're not talking about the movies, even though that is part of it. Paul Rudd, we are not slagging off Paul Rudd. I'm a little bit tired of Paul Rudd, I won't lie. I don't dislike him, but I think he may be slightly overused.
I wouldn't get tired of him because he's clearly functionally immortal and he's going to be around for at least another 150 years.
But that's
he hasn't
weird,
he hasn't aged at all in 20 years.
Yeah. I was reading
that's not right.
MVM. I'm very gullible to I talk about like, God, I'm never going to do any surgery or any of that sort of stuff or any weird pills or whatever. And then I saw Russell Kane, of all people, an old friend, talking about it on Instagram. I think he's doing some men's health stuff, and because he's 50 now, and he's sort of, everyone's like, you look about 26. Well, I don't know if he looks 26, but he he's MVM, I think it's called. Should we try it? And then next week to see if it's just a pill you take to stop you aging.
Is it like mutant growth hormone?
It's mutant growth hormone. It's some kind of, it apparently slows down cellular breakdown or some shit. I started reading it, and then I feel
like it's a bit late for me.
Yeah. I'd love it if we did it. It's like that Simpsons episode where his hair comes back. Right, so that's Ant-Man. He's at number 33. By the way, if you become a Patreon follower, of course, you can see all this order at some point. We haven't quite worked out how to do it yet, but you will be able to see all the order, and all the comics are going to be listed on there as I put them together. I'm about 13 ahead, as in, so you can read along with us. That's the ultimate idea of this. My ultimate dream is that people will be reading along the comics with us and sending their thoughts. Who do you think is the worst Ant-Man? Is it Hank? Is it Scott? Is it Eric?
It's Hank.
It's Hank. Okay, fine. So where do we put Eric? Do we go...
he's quite low.
I mean, he's not King Bedlam low.
No.
He's now at number 78. Is he worse than Red Hulk? Yes.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Achilles? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he's probably worse than Anna Lee, isn't he?
Yeah, and we like Anna Lee. R.I.P. Anna Lee. Yes. Amphibian, Aero. I don't want to... I feel bad that we really disliked Aero so much, but I think that's because it felt like Chinese propaganda.
Yeah.
But then all the other ones feel like American propaganda. So in a way, it's kind of... Okay, should we put him below Aero, above Android Man?
I'm happy with that. That's like
Ant-Man, Eric O'Grady. There he is. Next, the man himself. You either love him or you hate him, but you almost definitely just hate him. If you do love him, you're definitely not right.
I think he's bottom of the list for me.
Whoa!
That's how much I didn't like Hank.
We've talked a lot about him.
We have. I don't.
Nick, I mean, I feel like
I'm happy for you to bump him. I'm happy for you to bump him up above that, but I think my position is.
I mean, I am here. For me. I am here to I like to curate the story comics. Yeah. I like to talk about them. I feel like you, Dan, Jamie, and other guests who at some point we're going to get along. I do have a few lined up. It's just the whole arranging.
Yeah. Logistics.
I feel like I've got to put it. The ball has got to go in your court. You're talking about one of the I just want to remind you, one of the founding stones of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
A man who created unstable molecules. Maybe he should have been a little bit less unstable himself. A man who has been around since 1957. Ant-Man, Hank Pym, you are going to put him below King Bedlam. Below Agent X, below Albion, and out fascist.
I was tempted to say, do you know what? Maybe let's put him below Red Hulk. But now you've put it like that. Yeah, bottom of the list.
He's on there.
I'm sticking by it.
If I had the decision, but I want the decision to be in your guys' hands. I think I would have put him. I might have put him top 10. I don't know what that says about me.
Ooh.
It's not good. Just as a character, I think his journey is quite interesting.
I mean, look, I understand what you're saying.
No.
My gut reaction to him was no.
I mean, Porcupine's at number 4, but like you say, weirdly, what's his name? Bullseye has done much worse.
Where's Bullseye in the list?
He's not on it yet.
Oh,
but you would put him probably near the top, right? But he is a villain. That's just more interesting.
But I think if you're a villainous character, you can be high on the list as long as you're judged within that code. And I think Hank fails on the moral code of a hero so badly that he doesn't deserve to be anywhere but down at the bottom.
And yet he's never been a villain, has he? Apart from when he merged with Ultron, but that doesn't really count. Do you know what I mean? They still, they're making excuses for him.
Yeah.
Left, right, and center.
So I think for me,
not okay.
He's got to be bottom of the list.
Hank Pym, shame on you. You are number 80. Last week we had a new top in Daredevil. What did you think about that, by the way?
Fully agree.
You endorse this? Okay.
Love Matt Murdock.
Now we have a new bottom.
Being top of the list. Yeah,
you are on board with that. Okay. Now we have a new bottom with Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man.
And if you strongly disagree with that, please join our Patreon and tell us why.
Please do. You can join for free, I think, as well. If not, we'll make that the case. We've got a lot of work to do on that Patreon, I won't lie. And we're going to do that in a minute. We're going to record some extra episodes. We're going to record the Man in the Anthill, which was Hank's, just a little bit more Hank. Why not? And maybe we'll get a couple. We're going to retroactively go back through all of the episodes we've done. And I've already made a big old list of some extra content. It's the weirdest appearance of some of those characters. Sometimes it's questions that remained, i.e. What happened to the Abomination's wife? If you think back to episode 3, the Abomination. Things like that. Fun things, extra things. And you can get them all if you go to Patreon. They're going to be filling up. That Patreon is going to be bulging with extra content before you know it over the next month or so. But we are going to get them done and get them out there. And on top of that, probably the most interesting thing, if you do want to become a Patreon, is you can suggest. Now, the few Patrons we do have, one character that's come up a lot is, of course, the man himself. And Jamie himself said this, Spider-Man. Yeah.
And he's an icon.
So we are going to go to Spider-Man. We're going to continue our Daredevil, our journey, a deep dive into Daredevil, the Daredevil world next week, where hopefully Dan and Jamie will be here discussing the Kingpin, Bullseye, and Elektra. Then Nick's going to join me the week after to discuss Marvel's deadliest gamers. Next villain on the list is Arcade, and he's going to be joined by Mojo, Grandmaster, and
the deadly
incredible Joystick. A lot of fun there. Thanks so much for listening. And yes, as I say, what I meant to say is we are going to do Spider-Man, but we're going to do a similar thing where we break it down over 4 weeks, I think, and do, the different Spidey eras. We're going to do the symbiotes. We're going to do the many loves of his life. We're going to do all the Bugle characters. We're going to do top villains, all that stuff. It's going to be wonderful.
3 episodes just on the Clone Saga.
Yes. Actually, Jono from Sheeps wants to do one, and that's the one he's picked.
Nice.
Not only that, he sent me a photo of his Scarlet Spider collection. He's got every omnibus of the Scarlet Spider.
Impressive.
I'm intrigued because I read that Joystick one, and it was not good. It was not strong. Joystick is a Scarlet Spider villain, in case you're wondering. Right. Come on, we got to go. Thanks so much for listening. And please, do all those things we said. And most importantly, join us here next week when we meet Daredevil, Kingpin, Bullseye, Elektra. Goodbye.
Cheerio.
Goodbye, A-bombers and Zzzaxers.
You have been listening to abombtozzzax, my favorite Marvel character, with me, Colin Holt, and my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. There they go! Please remember to support us at patreon.com/abombtozzzax.